What is your utopia? What is that perfect world you would like to live in? Or the perfect life you would like to live? I've been starting to ask myself these questions about 1.5 years ago. I had worked my ass off doing my studies, and I climbed my way all the way to the top of the working class people. And once I got there, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I decided to work on some of the personal issues first. And I had this underlying feeling of stress for many years and didn't know what to do about it. So I decided to fight stress with positive energy, right? And I developed my own kind of program, and I called it the Balanced Energy Card. Now with the Balanced Energy Card, I placed positive energy in the middle, and I surrounded it with all the elements in my life that gave me that positive energy. Yeah, some of them are quite personal indeed. But it doesn't seem like a bad idea, right? Now here's what happened. The more I started to implement all of these things into my life, the more stressed I became and the more busy I got. And then eventually the opposite happened from positive energy. I got into a burnout. And now this is where the worst period of my life starts. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't meet any people. I couldn't be in any public spaces, like bars or restaurants. Even places like these, I couldn't be here. And so I decided to go into therapy. And this is where my coach, she asked me this very first question. What is it you would like to do? And this very simple but difficult question, right? And as we started looking for the answer of this question, we also started to dig a bit deeper. And this is where I found out, well, 10 years before, my father had passed away. And as a result of that, I never processed his feelings, apparently. And I was guided by a system of stress and insecurity for all these years. But once I knew this, I could start work on the things that I really liked. And so my coach, he also asked me to visualize these things. Now, the first thing that came up was water. Probably most of you know why now. But I started to apply for a water company. And I got a job within a month. And as a second, I envisioned myself being in a suit on an airplane traveling for work. And this happened actually a few months ago as a result of my job. And the third thing is actually happening right now. I envisioned myself being on a TED stage. And 2 months ago, I got asked to be on this stage, and it's actually happening now. So I'm pretty excited to be here, actually. So yeah, as I started to work for the water company, I also started to develop this interest for the issue of plastic soup. I think the most of you here know these kinds of images, right? And the more I started to investigate this issue, the more I found out that we're actually doing it all wrong. See, the same as that I was trying to fight my stress with positive energy, instead of focusing on the underlying feelings that I had to deal with my father. The same principle is happening right now. We're not looking at the source of the problem. And there's many initiatives taking place, right, which are great. But if we really want to create an impact and we want to create this utopia of a plastic-free ocean, then we have to be critical to the effect of these initiatives. And therefore, I would like to share to you and reveal to you 3 secrets that have to be known before we can start working on the utopia of a plastic-free ocean. The first one, recycling plastics in the developed world, is not the greatest solution for reducing the plastic soup. I think that most of you here who have been separating the plastics for recycling must think that what have I been doing then all these years? It's a good question. Unfortunately, the complexity of plastics is a bit higher than we all think. There are about 250 different types of plastics used in the packaging of disposable products. Companies, they choose to brand their products and they use different weights of plastics, different colors, different types of plastics. And as a result, when we as consumers separate the useless plastics for recycling, that it becomes even more difficult and more expensive to separate the high from the low quality plastics, right? But okay, let's say that with improved technology on recycling and a ban on the majority of the useless plastics, we can improve the recycling rate, right, from 30% to an expected 50% in Europe. And we still have to take into account that the population will grow, right? And with that growth, the production of plastics will grow too. And it is expected it will grow to 400% in 2050. Now, if I make my calculations right, this would mean that by 2050, if we even continue with recycling, we would still consume twice as much plastics as we do right now. So maybe this is not the greatest solution. But let's look at another. Ocean cleanup initiatives are not the greatest solution for reducing the plastic soup neither. Now here in Holland, we proudly admire the initiatives taken by Bojan Slat, right? I mean, we have reason to. He has developed this amazing big plastic vacuum cleaner to clean up the surface of the oceans from plastics. And it is expected that by 2040, he will eliminate the plastics from the ocean by 90%. So we don't have to do anything anymore, right? We can just lay back and relax because Bojan will fix it. Well, let's look at some facts again. See, every year we dump 12.6 million tons of plastics in the ocean. Now, for the ones of you who this doesn't mean anything, it is the same as one garbage truck full of plastics being dumped in the ocean every minute. There are about 5 trillion pieces of plastics in the ocean right now, and the majority of them are microplastics. Now, microplastics are small particles of smaller than 5 millimeters, and they're everywhere. And research has also indicated that 99% of all the plastics in the ocean, they cannot even be localized at the surface of the ocean. So they must be either swimming around, they have been eaten by sea animals, or they're lying at the bottom of the ocean. And I don't want to say that the ocean cleanup initiatives is bad, right? But in Dutch, we have a beautiful expression to illustrate the situation. We're mopping the floor with the tap wide open. And although mopping, there's nothing wrong with mopping, but maybe we should start thinking about closing the tap first. Now, for the third secret, I need your help. Please raise your hand if you think that the majority of the plastics, more than 50%, comes from continents like Europe and the US. It's quite a lot. Now, please raise your hand if you think that more than 50% of all the plastics in the ocean come from Africa and Asia. Still a lot too. Something went wrong there, people. But yeah, 1/2 was right. Unfortunately, 95% of all the plastics in the ocean come from just 10 rivers in Asia and Africa. So the interesting question to raise here is, does it all make sense then to ban single-use items like straws and those things here in Europe? If it just accounts for 5%, right? Should we not maybe focus more on the 95% of the problem? I think that here lies the secret for Utopia of a plastic-free ocean. All right, now that we have seen what are the secrets and which are not the greatest solution for reducing plastic soup, and we know what is the source of the problem, you might ask yourself, so what is the secret then for the Utopia of a plastic-free ocean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've selected for you a few examples which I believe form a perfect solution for reducing plastic soup at the source. Let's have a look. The first one is not sexy at all. This is the REPI Waste-to-Energy Facility, and it is located in Addis Ababa, the capital city of Ethiopia. And it's located next to a huge landfill of 36 football pitches, full of waste. And what it does, it basically transforms waste into energy. So every day it transforms 1,400 tons of waste into energy. And with this energy, it supplies 30% of Addis Ababa's households with clean, renewable energy. And besides that, it also generates all these other advantages. So for example, it recycles 3.6 million kilos of metal each year, and it creates 27,000 bricks every day made from the ash residue to build houses. And now all of these advantages, while respecting EU regulation on air emissions, I think that's quite beautiful to see how we can effectively get rid of waste while generating all these other advantages. A second, which I really like, is the plastic bank. Now, the plastic bank is located in Haiti, the Philippines, and Indonesia. And what it does, it basically aims at reducing levels of waste while also alleviating levels of poverty. How does it work? Waste collectors go into the streets and collect high-quality plastics like PET and bring them to local plastic banks. And in exchange for those plastics, they receive a value in the form of school tuition or medical insurance or phone credit or whatever they need. And then these plastics are then sold to larger corporations as social plastics, and they make shampoo bottles out of them. And as a result, they have already installed more than 30 plastic banks in Haiti alone. They have worked with more than 2,000 waste collectors, and they have already collected more than 3 million kilos of waste. So what I like about this example is that it shows we can not only get rid of waste, but also involving the local community at resolving a global issue of plastic soup. And right, so the third example is very special to me because it's the company that I dreamed of working for last year, and it's called Join the Pipe. Now, basically, with Join the Pipe, we have created a worldwide community of tap water drinkers. And on the one hand, we sell reusable water bottles made from sugarcane and pre-filled with locally produced tap water. And the interesting about it is that it forms an alternative for single-use polluting mineral water bottles as we sell them in supermarkets, etc. And on the other hand, we have tap stations. So these are installed in parks or squares or hotels so that when your bottle is finished, you can easily refill it at one of the tap stations. And what is interesting here is that with the revenues generated from these products, we finance clean drinking water projects in developing countries. So up till now, we have already donated more than 500,000 bottles in mostly Africa, and we have set up more than 300 projects in these countries. But besides the provision of water, we also started to focus on the issue of plastic soup. So, for example, we go into major African cities where the issue of plastic soup is most critical, and we collaborate with local schools, and together with the children, we go into the streets, we bring them awareness about the issue of plastic waste, and at the end of the day, they receive a reusable water bottle and a diploma. And so what our utopia would be is to set up local factories in these cities where we can produce the bottles locally and offer them below cost price so we can incentivize the people there to switch from single-use bottles or bags, which are very polluting in these countries, to multi-use alternatives. All right, I think that this is it. I think we have seen what are the key ingredients for reducing plastic soup and creating this utopia of a plastic-free ocean. And we have seen, for example, with the Rapid Waste-to-Energy facility, right, that we can not only get rid of waste effectively, but also generate all these other advantages. And electricity and energy is a major problem in African cities. And we've seen with the plastic bank, right, that we can involve the local community and offer them a value in exchange for waste. And like that, we can focus on reducing the plastic waste at the source. And the third thing we see in Join the Pipe, that we can offer reusable alternatives in these cities or in Africa, for example. And that we can finance projects there by selling products here. But they're all very different, right? And I think the main thing that they have in common is that they focus on the 95% of the problem. They focus on reducing plastic waste at the source. But okay, maybe the most important, the key ingredient in the secret recipe of utopia is you. I believe we cannot solve the world's biggest problems, like plastic soup or global change or any kind of challenge that you feel motivated to fight for, if we don't start to solve the problems that we have in ourselves. If we humans have created all this mess, then we humans can also fix it, but then we have to fix ourselves first. And therefore, I would like to end with the same question as I started with. What is your utopia? Thank you.